Hello, it's good to have this opportunity to talk to you again. Now, I thought that during lockdown I really wouldn't have an awful lot to do. Obviously, I had to look after Susan to the best of my ability. But then I had a phone call from Open Doors and they said your successor as advocacy director has left, and they wondered if I could help tide them over for a few weeks until they were able to start the recruitment process for a successor once again. So I found myself back doing something that I'd done for quite a while in recent years, and that's about getting individuals to speak up to MPs, to get them to speak up to the government, to get the government to take action on behalf of Christians who face persecution. So during lockdown, I've been thinking particularly about how the coronavirus has impacted the lives of our brothers and sisters around the world. It's clear that the global pandemic takes a toll on those who are particularly vulnerable. And being part of a religious minority makes you even more vulnerable, potentially lethally so. For Christians already facing persecution and discrimination on a daily basis, COVID-19 has prompted additional threats and dangers, and there's an urgent need to respond to this aspect of the crisis. So how do Christians experience the extra vulnerability that this means? Well, for example, when aid is distributed, they may well get left at the end of the queue. Here's a pastor from Nigeria. He says, "I'm not just saying this, I'm saying because I've seen it. Christians have been marginalised. The inhabitants of neighbouring non-Christian communities receive much bigger portions of rice and noodles. We've had Christians faint and collapse in the struggles of trying to get food for their family." In India, a Christian was expelled from his village, and after remaining elsewhere for some time, he tried to return. The village chief tried to force him to leave again. While everyone else in the village received food rations, this guy was left out. And then Simon, a Christian in Bangladesh, says the authorities think that we Christians get a lot of support from foreign Christian organisations, so they use that as an excuse not to give us relief aid. Another NGO has reported from Pakistan, people have become so desperate that they're forced to trade their religion in exchange for food. They are forced to convert to Islam for just one sack of flour. Have a listen to this phone call that was recorded in India just a few weeks ago.
अच्छा, क्या काम करते हैं?
मैं यही दिहाड़ी सब्जी उब्जी में जाता तो भी बंद है।
अच्छा, आपके घर में कितने लोग हैं परिवार में?
मैं तो है 8 परिवार।
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा,
हाँ, बहुत औखा है।
आपके पास अभी राशन है नहीं?
नहीं, राशन रहता तो मैं पास्टर को फोन नहीं करता। बहुत औखा है।
चलिए ठीक है बहन, हम आपके लिए प्रार्थना करते हैं और मैं कोशिश करता हूँ कि क्या हो सकता है, कल हम आपके लिए कुछ इंतजाम करेंगे। ठीक है?
ठीक है।
कोई दूसरा लोग राशन लेके नहीं पहुँचे आपके पास?
कोई नहीं पहुँचा है राशन लेके, कोई नहीं। सारे जुगिए इधर दे देता है, मेरे मोहल्ले नहीं आता है।
अच्छा, आपके मोहल्ले में क्यों नहीं आता है?
कोई नहीं आता है, कोई नहीं। मेरे बेरे के लोग तरस रहा है रोटी बेगर।
ओहो, कितना घर होगा आपके उधर?
इधर 9 घर आएगा, 9 जुग्गी है।
सब विश्वासी है?
सब विश्वासी है।
अच्छा अच्छा।
Then there's also discrimination in employment. We've had stories of Christians being asked to take on the work that others won't do because they're considered dispensable. That's what one of them said. We're asked to do it without PPE and we're considered dispensable. We're so tired, she said in a phone call to Open Doors. And then people get blamed for the pandemic. Religious minorities have been blamed across the world. It may be Muslims being blamed in India. Shia Muslims have been blamed in Pakistan by the other kind of Muslim. And in some countries it's Christians that get the blame. And the most frightening example of that has come from Somalia. Christians already have to live life in secret because of what might happen to them if people discovered they were Christians. And Islamic State has been telling the local population that Christians are the spreaders of this disease. So that adds an extra layer of fear and vulnerability into their lives. Christians are vulnerable in lockdown too. In Nigeria, Fulani militants are suspected of carrying out multiple raids on villages in Kaduna and Plateau states, killing 32 Christians. Villagers were obeying local state directives to keep to their homes to prevent the spread of the virus, and they believed that the attacks were part of a wider agenda to uproot them from the area. Bond said the community made efforts to alert security agents, but nothing was done to prevent it. And they added, if people are going to stay in their homes during the COVID-19 pandemic, they need to feel safe from attacks like this. So this is a real problem. How do we combat this vulnerability? Open Doors has consistently drawn attention to these additional vulnerabilities that are faced by those who experience persecution. See, it's the poorest people who are most vulnerable to illness, starvation, injustice, violence. And if you're a woman, you're even more vulnerable to those things. And if you're a woman and you belong to a religious minority, your vulnerability is increased again. Now, much of that is true in the UK, but it's true around the world. And until recently, UK Aid was ignoring completely the reality of religious identity. The motto was, it's need, not creed. So they didn't even try and find out whether Christians had additional vulnerability. They just gave to people according to their need. And the result was that Christians often got marginalised, got left out. Now, things have been getting better. But the new Open Doors campaign launched this week is designed first of all to make sure that every MP knows what is happening to Christians around the world and how this pandemic is an extra layer of vulnerability, creating more persecution. Then we hope that they'll take action to make sure UK Aid is taking this dimension seriously. By the way, many MPs have already done something. They don't need Open Doors necessarily to prompt them. But the campaign is timely for another reason. The government has announced that the Department for International Development is going to be merged with the Foreign Office. And the way the Prime Minister announced this suggested that UK Aid would no longer be focused entirely on trying to defeat poverty. And that's really serious, because at this precise moment, it is now predicted that at the end of 2020 there will be about 50 million more people living in extreme poverty. And of the 12 countries where this rise in people who are poor will be over 1 million, 8 of them appear in the Open Doors World Watch list of the 50 countries where it is most difficult to be a Christian. So there'll literally be millions more people poor, and there'll literally be millions of more Christians who are poor and vulnerable because of this pandemic. The Prime Minister was very clear in his Christmas message. He said this: "Today of all days, I want us to remember those Christians around the world who are facing persecution. For them, Christmas Day will be marked in private, in secret, perhaps even in a prison cell. As Prime Minister, that's something I want to change. We stand with Christians everywhere in solidarity and will defend your right to practice your faith." So this campaign that I've been helping to write about and to launch in this past week is about trying to turn that into a reality, trying to make sure that the promise that has been made to care about Christians who are persecuted is remembered and acted upon in these weeks ahead, as life will continue to be difficult, possibly even get more difficult for those who are facing persecution. It's all about doing the right thing. It's about justice. It's about well-being. You could say it's about shalom. I'm sure I've heard that somewhere recently.